Kade Pieper might be the most farm boy Iowa offensive lineman we've had to discuss in a minute in this college football class. He's a farm-built lineman from Norfolk, Nebraska, former two-way high school monster, a state shot put champion, former tight end recruit, and he flipped from North Dakota State to Iowa. He waited his turn, took over as right guard, and immediately became one of the best run blocking interior linemen in the country. 2025 started all 13 games, allowed one sack, gave up only only 10 pressures, drew one penalty, earned all Big Ten recognition, and helped anchor the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line. But this evaluation has a real question. Is he my center 3 where I think he fits best? Even though most of his tape is at guard. He's also only 290 pounds, and Wisconsin's heavy front showed that NFL power could be a test. So today we're breaking down Kade Pieper, and why he's number 68 on my draft board, why the run blocking tape is special, why his return to Iowa could turn him into a day 2 interior offensive lineman, and why I think he'll be better as a center than guard. Before we get into that, make sure you hit the like button, follow, subscribe. As we keep putting in the work, we are on our way to 100 prospects before college football kicks off. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Draft Yoda. We're data-driven and prospect-focused, breaking down Kade Pieper. God, I've got to figure out I'm going to say his name, Pieper. And he's currently holding an 8.83 out of 10, 68 overall, center number 3. And I want to clear this up right away. He's not a pure center-only evaluation. His best college tape right now is at guard, right guard. But I have him in the center group because the next level projection gives him center guard versatility. And I think ultimately he is a top 15 center, but a top 25 guard. And that's why I have him as a center over a guard. I think that's the higher evaluation for him. And Iowa has a reputation of developing linemen, teaching technique, and building tough players. They produce NFL-ready offensive linemen. And I think Kade Pieper is the next one in that pipeline. Coming out of Norfolk, Nebraska, it's one of those backgrounds that almost feels like a storyboard when you're building an offensive lineman. Farm built, shot put champion, two-way high school player, former tight end recruit, district MVP. And it's exactly the kind of profile Iowa seems to turn into a real offensive line talent. The only thing that was missing is the high school wrestling background for him. I couldn't find any, if it's there. But it seems like Iowa just finds these guys. In high school, he wasn't just a blocker. He was a two-way force, posted 130 tackles as a senior. And that's a ridiculous number for a lineman. Tells you he had real football instincts, real physicality, and real movement ability. He's not just big. He can play, he can run, he can find the ball, and he can finish. Shot push shows you, he has force, balance, hip explosion, upper body strength, lower body drive. And those traits translate for an offensive lineman, especially an interior offensive lineman. Originally committed to North Dakota State, which makes sense. North Dakota State has a reputation playing tough, physical football, and offensive linemen develop there. Iowa came in and flipped him to the Hawkeyes as a 3-star recruit. And that kind of changed the arc of his career because Iowa is one of the best offensive line development programs in college football. If you're tough and an interior offensive lineman with movement skills, play strength, and room to develop, Iowa is going to be one of the best places for you to go. He was a backup in 2024. 2025, he finally got his opportunity. Started all 13 games, allowed just 1 sack, gave up 10 pressures across 330 passive blocking snaps, drew only 1 penalty, third team All Big Ten. He was part of an Iowa offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award as the nation's best unit. That's a monster first year as a starter. Offensive line play is not easy to fake. If you're bad, tape will find you. The defense will find you, coordinators will find you, and in the Big Ten, the fronts will test you. The Joe Moore Award matters. It's given to the best offensive line in the country, and Pieper was not just standing on the sideline for that. He was one of the starting pieces. That matters because offensive line play is about chemistry. It's about 5 guys moving together, 5 guys understanding calls, trusting each other, fitting combinations, and handling pressure. And when a line wins the Joe Moore Award, it says the whole unit functioned at an elite level. Pieper stepped into that unit and helped it become the best line in the country, and that's a major resume piece for you, for him. Sorry. First thing that stands out is the run blocking when you start watching his tape. It's among the best of any interior lineman in this class. It's the foundation for the evaluation. He plays with real power, understand angles. He can pull, he can climb, he can fit with his hands, and he can create movement. And when he gets the right angle, he can uproot defensive tackles. That's where the farm-built strength shows up. He's not just leaning on people. He's generating force. He can displace defenders on angle drives, and he can create lanes and get to the second level. His movement ability is another thing that really shines for him. Being a former tight end, you can see the athletic background he has in his game, especially when he pulls and climbs the linebackers. Working in space for him is something that stands out compared to others, and that matters for an interior lineman. They have to move to give offenses more menu. They can run zone. If you have linemen that can move, you can run zone, you can run pin and pull, you can run counters, you can ask them to climb, you can ask them to locate second level targets. And Pieper has that kind of movement skill. He's not just stiff in a phone booth guard. He has real athletic ability. And even though he's 290 pounds, he plays with a strong base. That's important because there's a difference between a weight room strength and functional play strength. And Pieper has functional power. The farm strength shows up. The shot put background shows up. The ability to generate force through the ground. When he gets leverage, he can move people. When he fits his hands, he can create displacement. And when he gets the angle blocks, he can wash defenders out of the play completely. And he's not just a run snap guy. He's not just a run defender or a run blocker. He can also defend against the pass. 1 sack in 13 games, only allowed 10 pressures on 330 pass blocking snaps, and only gave up 1 penalty. That's excellent production for a first-year starter in the Big Ten. I don't care where you're at. That's excellent production. And results matter, He's not giving up consistent pressure. He's not killing drives with penalties. He's not looking overwhelmed, and he's making immediate impact in the line that he joined. And penalty discipline is something that offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators and head coaches absolutely love. Offensive line can ruin drives without giving up sacks. False starts, holding calls, illegal hands, downfield penalties. Those plays put the offense behind schedule. And Pieper not doing that tells you he plays with control. He's not sloppy. He's not reckless. And for a young starter, that's special. You know, I project him more as a center, but he's got guard versatility as well, which is going to help him, latch on to a team. If you have a center, he can play guard. If you have a guard, he can play center. I have him currently ranked in the center group because I think that's his higher level, but I could I could be persuaded to be guard as well. He's capable of doing both. He's very intelligent. Um, he's got good movement. He's got a good interior experience. And I think that fits both interior line positions. Nobody's perfect, though. I've always said that. Nobody's perfect. And Pieper being around 290 pounds makes him one of the lighter interior linemen in the group. That's a big question at the college level. He can win with athleticism, angles, toughness, and technique, but at the NFL level, those tackles are different. They're bigger, stronger, faster. They're better with their hands. They attack your chest. They collapse your anchor. And they're going to test him. Can he add functional weight without losing the movement that makes him special is a question. The Wisconsin game gives you pause. Wisconsin's heavy front gave him his roughest, afternoon. Matters because it shows what true mass can do to him. When a defensive front has size, power, and leverage, Pieper can be tested. And that's what the NFL will look like every week. So the evaluators are going to ask, can he anchor against bigger nose tackles? Can he hold his ground against power? Can he play with better pad level? And can he avoid getting walked back? Can he keep the movement ability while adding more mass? The Wisconsin tape does not ruin the evaluation, but it tells you what he has to improve on coming into the season. There were stretches of plays where his pad level got high. And at 290 pounds, that's a little bit more concerning. If a heavier guard plays high, he still has some mass underneath him to survive. If a heavier center plays high, there's still mass underneath him to survive. But if a lighter interior lineman plays high, power can become a problem real quick. He has a lot of plays with lower pads. He has kept his base under him, and he's avoided leaning. But there's just a few stretches where you watch the tape and he gets high. It's only been 1 year sampled, and this year is going to provide him with more tape. Going into 2026, it's huge for Pieper. He passed on the draft to return for his redshirt junior year. And to me, the development plan is pretty clear. Add 10 to 15 functional pounds. Don't lose the momentum. Repeat this level you were at. Keep the penalties low. Improve the pass sets. Hold up better against heavier fronts. Show your center versatility if Iowa gives you those reps. And prove that 2025 is not a 1 year spike. If he does that, he's going to climb. Iowa offensive linemen already have the benefit of the doubt. And as the tape matches that pipeline, the NFL teams are going to be very aware of it. He has the first part. Now he needs the second year of kind of a statement of proof for himself. Currently, he sits as an 8.83 out of 10, my 68 overall, center number 3. Farm-built, athletic, powerful interior lineman that can play guard or tackle. He has outstanding run blocking tape, real movement ability, clear pass blocking results, low penalty numbers, And his versatility is just going to set him apart. Can he add a few pounds and still play the way he played? Can he add some strength and still play the way he played? Can he continue to create movement once he's added some weight? Those are the questions going into this season. And those are the questions that make him one of the more interesting offensive linemen in this class, because he may not be finished. He's not a finished product yet. But the foundation is exactly what NFL offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators want on their team. That's my board, though. That's what I think of Kade Pieper. What do you think about him? Is he a guard? Is he a center? Can he play both at the next level? How much should Iowa's offensive line developmental history matter when evaluating a player who's only got 1 year starting tape? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you've liked these player evaluations, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow for more. We're on our way to 100 before college football kicks off. As always, I am Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.